And so I think you see the roots of a character like Dr. Jekyll in Macbeth. This idea of a very capable, wonderful person in many respects that believes in the wrong things, that gets seduced by glory or ego or power into doing things that are not what he originally intended to do at the start. But then he finds himself in a position where he has few choices. As Macbeth says, he imagines himself in a river of blood and says, I stepped in so far, should I wade no further? Going back will be as tedious as to go over. Look up the quote. But he's basically saying, I've waded through so much blood that I'm in the middle of a bloodbath. I can't get myself out of this quickly and cleanly. I might as well finish the job and keep murdering and get to the other side, because if I try and get myself out of this, it's still going to involve a lot of blood and violence and murder and going back. This idea comes back to ancient Greece, if you want to take it back that far. The idea that two of Zeus, the king of the gods' sons, are Apollo and Dionysus, and Apollo is the wonderful one, full of all the wonderful things that mankind can be, this quintessence of man, as Shakespeare says in Hamlet. Poetry, art, medicine, light, knowledge, music, everything wonderful. He can fire arrows. He's gorgeous and muscle-bound. But another son of Zeus is Dionysus, who is full of mischief and revelry and drunkenness and partying and seeking pleasure and deceit. And so you take it back to the ancient Greeks. The idea is that both of these are part of nature, and both of these are part of us, if we're honest enough to engage with that. Okay, one perhaps penultimate area just to underline is this notion of superficiality. I've talked about it a few times during this video, so I won't say too much here. But it's everywhere in Macbeth, and it's almost like a warning from Shakespeare, perhaps to James I, the new King of England, to be wary of who pretends to be on his side, who he can trust, a warning of hidden dangers that are lurking there behind sometimes beautiful things like an innocent flower. So watch out, and how nature can contain good and evil in the same moment, as it were. Okay, so if I knew how to, I would link to this video within the video itself. But this is a perfect example that I use when showing students about how nature contains evil. Lovely David Attenborough, BBC. This bird here who sees this, oh look, there's a little spider, it's just crawling around, and the bird thinks, that's lovely. I'll have a bit of that, and so flies over for dinner. Boom. Except unfortunately for the bird, he or she is dinner. So a lovely example of the serpent hiding there, and the dangers and the threats that can eat you up and destroy you. What's particularly clever about that is it's so Machiavellian. It's the surface. It's using something that your opponent would be seduced by, and to tease them and to tempt them in. So it's sort of using your opponent's weakness. Very, very Machiavellian idea there, and perfect example of dog eat dog. Here is a snake eat bird, but the bird's a predator in the first instance to the spider, right? So it's this, it's just predation. It's just nature. Back to that idea of violence within nature. You can go and look that up. Little animal hunted in their most bizarre attack. Go and look it up on YouTube. It's from 7 Worlds, 1 Planet. Anything David Attenborough does is worth watching, so go and watch it. Which leads us quite nicely into Machiavelli. So just a few outlines. Again, touched on them a few times, so I won't spend too long on this. But his thinking is a big influence on Shakespeare, and it's a big influence on so much crime fiction, so much detective fiction and modern TV shows, series, and films. So some of Machiavelli's advice, as I touched on earlier, is not particularly moral, but it is particularly effective. So he would argue that a good prince, or a good king, a good leader, is able to outthink and outbetray while still looking pure. So pretending to be something on the surface, but under the surface being deceitful and untrustworthy. They should be a great liar and deceiver. Duncan is not a great liar and deceiver. They should use the surface to hide reality, And you should be feared, not loved. You can't be both, he says. It's better to be feared. If you can't be both, it's better to be feared rather than loved. And he would argue that the ends justify the means. So whatever your ends are, i.e. where you want to end up, where you want to get to, whatever you have to do to get there, you have to do to get, however violent or murderous or nasty. And Machiavel will be ruthless and conniving, plotting and cunning, and prepared to be violent to survive. So these are all words of advice or words of wisdom contained in the Prince to a leader, to a would-be leader, to say, look, this is what you got to do. Okay, so here are some quotations from Machiavelli. You can pause it here, and you can maybe get a kind of an idea or a feel for Machiavelli, what he's like through some of his famous quotations. You can maybe relate one to Macbeth, relate one to your own life. I'm sure you will love at least one of them, if not all of them. There is a kind of a shocking truth to some of his ideas, I think, and an incredible honesty, bravery and courage to sort of express it 500 years ago. A lot of people would have called for his head and demanded his execution for speaking and stating things like this. So a finishing point here for would-be students of Macbeth is the language, which can often seem scary, terrifying, daunting, alien, like another world. So here's just a few tips for how you go about it. You don't have to listen to them all by any means, but first thing I'd say is you won't understand every word or line. I've been reading it for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I love it. Every time I come back to it, there's more and more that interests me that I didn't realise. I learn every time, but I still don't understand every word. Far from it. That's okay. It doesn't stop me enjoying it, and it won't stop you enjoying it, so don't stress it. You're not going to. It's written 500 years ago. Okay? It's not written for you. Shakespeare's not writing for students 500 years in the future. He's writing for people at his time to get bums on seats in his theatre. So don't stress that. Worry about what you do get rather than how much you don't. Because lots of language is beautiful. So I would suggest you treat it like a puzzle or a mystery. And he's a detective. You've got to go to work on it. You've got to see how much you can work out and try and attack it like that. And most people who saw it for the first time were themselves illiterate. That point I was just making. It's not written for professors of Oxford in 2021 or whenever. It's written to entertain people. So the ideas, the themes, the action, the characterization doesn't require you to understand every word and to be a complete expert on the language. I would suggest that you listen to it as much as you can and read it out loud, even if you sound stupid. It's meant to be heard. It's meant to be played by players in a playhouse. It's a play. It's not meant to be studied in a dry, silent, dead way. So lots of the flow of the language, the sounds that's being made, whether that's the harsh sounds of Lady Macbeth, when thou durst do it, then there's a man, or the flow of the witch's incantations by the pricking of my thumb, suggestion of evil there in their kind of jaunty rhythm, or even perhaps the sibilance. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. It's supposed to be heard, not just read. I would also say that when you do read it, your vocabulary will expand itself. You will appreciate the English language much more. Various things. Something like fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. To finish Act 1, Scene 1. There's such depth to the language, because fair and foul are opposites, right? But they're also double opposites, in the sense that fair meaning beautiful, as in a fair day or my fair lady, and foul meaning ugly, like a foul smell or a foul stench or something. But fair also means just and right, a sense of justice, and foul means an injustice, like a foul in sport or something. So those opposites operate on double levels. There's so much depth to it, and there's so much you might perhaps more appreciate from analysing some of the language and the careful choices that Shakespeare makes. A complete master of language. It will expand your own vocabulary and improve your own understanding of your own language. So in words like weird, the weird sisters, or the witches are called. Weird, I think, is a Scandinavian or a Norse. Comes from Old Norse, weird, and means supernatural. So nowadays we use it to mean strange or odd, or connotations or suggestions of the supernatural in its original use. And I think Shakespeare's the first to use it in English, I think. Or phrases like one fell swoop, which are part of the English language. Here you see it used for the first time as Shakespeare original. The last idea I will finish on is that it's beautiful. The language is incredible. the way he weaves words together to create ideas and create notions that stick with you, or stick in your brain, or lessons, or eternal truths. That last quotation, to leave you as stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires. I could do a whole video just on those 2 lines. There's so much going on there. He's speaking to the heavens, he's speaking to the light, and he's asking it to something natural. In the case of stars, he's demanding that it's unnatural. He's using imperative, trying to command the heavens. There's a sign of his ego there. There's that notion, there's the juxtaposition of the light with the darkness, the fire with the blackness. And there's alliteration in let not light and deep desire, the double alliteration suggests this is really heartfelt, this is really close to his heart, or it adds to a flow to it. There's notions there of the superficiality of hide your fires. Irony is that you can't ask nature to be unnatural. That's not sustainable. That's gonna come back to you. It's also a soliloquy here. We start to see Macbeth's real intentions darkening, and it's also echoed in the exact same words that Lady Macbeth is using of she wants to come thick night to pull thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, and etc. So much of the language is worth your study and is worth your time. And as with so much Shakespeare, the more you put in, the more you'll get out. You put in nothing, you'll get nothing out, because it's too hard and it's too complicated and beautiful. You use your brain, you go at it, you really try, you will get more out of it than you will get out of most texts or most works of art. I promise you. So get stuck in. You get out what you put in. Right, that's enough of that. I hope that's useful for you. I hope that's interested you to go and read a bit more Macbeth, find out a bit more about Shakespeare's famous Scottish play. Bye for now.